Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. As we begin this season of joy, many people will soon be opening gifts, especially the little ones. So I'd like to start the gift giving just a little bit early. I'd like to present somebody here with $20. It's a fairly new $20 bill, not too long from the bank. What if I folded it up? Anybody still want the $20 bill? I see a few hands. What if I just took it and crumpled it up? Anybody still want $20? What if I just kind of put it on the ground and stomped on it a few times? I mean, here it is. It's been folded, crumpled, stomped on. Does anybody still really want a $20 bill? Unfortunately, my superiors would get really angry at me if I started giving out $20 bills in my homily, so I have to keep it. But there's a valuable lesson in all this. Because no matter what I did to the $20 bill, people still wanted it. Why? Because no matter how banged up or dirty you got, it never lost its value. It's still worth $20. And many times in our lives, we get dropped, crumpled up, ground into the dirt by the decisions we make or the suffering that comes our way. Many times we feel worthless. But no matter how great the failure, nothing will ever diminish us. Nothing will ever diminish our value in the eyes of God. To Him, dirty or clean, crumpled or creased, we're priceless. So priceless that the almighty, all-powerful, eternal God would enter into the mess of our human existence in order to show us what our true value is. This is the miracle of Christmas. Matthew begins his gospel with the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Seems like a strange way to begin a book, doesn't it? If you were to write a novel today and started your book anything like this, don't even bother sending it to the publisher. But for the Jews, genealogies were very important. In fact, the temple had an archive of ancestry that was meticulously documented. And there were practical and legal reasons for the genealogies. Proofs of inheritance, rights, kingship, etc. They were used to settle disputes over land and property. But if we look a little bit closer at the genealogy of Jesus, we find some startling names on this list. Let's just begin with David and Bathsheba, the great king of Israel, the golden boy who slew Goliath. This is the same David who had entered into a sinful relationship with Bathsheba, after which he had her husband Uriah murdered. Rahab was a harlot. Ruth was a pagan Gentile. Tamar was an adulteress. And the list goes on and on and on. If Matthew had ransacked the Old Testament for improbable candidates, he couldn't have discovered a more incredible list of ancestors for Jesus Christ. Then we come to the gospel. Things really don't get much better. An unmarried woman, an unplanned pregnancy, an implausible explanation. It's not hard to imagine what the neighbors were saying and thinking. They aren't even married yet. Who's the father? She and her loved child should be stoned. Then there's the torment going on in Joseph's heart. How could this have happened? This didn't seem like the Mary he knew at all. Was the angel in his dream more than just a dream? The call for a census that forced Joseph and Mary to depart for Bethlehem might have been a welcome respite from what was happening in Nazareth, the shaming eyes and the finger pointing. But things don't get any better there either. Along the way, the time comes for Mary to give birth. Haven't found any lodging for the night. The city is crammed with people who've arrived for the census. Any spare room has long been occupied. Little ramshackle huts have been built in between the houses as hasty shelters to rent out to pilgrims, but they're already bursting at the seams. There's no welcome faces or open doors. And so Joseph and Mary greet their newborn son amid the filth of a frigid cave surrounded by livestock and animal droppings. And still, things don't get any better. Not long after the initial joy of Jesus' birth, King Herod, obsessed with his power, unleashes bloodthirsty soldiers to slaughter every male child in Bethlehem. Joseph, Mary, and their infant son are forced to flee for their lives. Jesus will grow up in a strange land far from home, surrounded by strange people with strange customs. What kind of plan is this? I mean, we're talking about God. This is the great plan of the Almighty to enter into human history. This is the ingenious plot devised by eternal wisdom to enter into the fullness of time. Doesn't sound like such a great plan. He comes from a lineage of pagans, idolaters, adulterers, and sinners. He enters into a situation which brings about shame, embarrassment, gossip, and finger-pointing. He comes to a town where his mother's desperately pregnant and where the people slam the door in his face. His coming is met with brutal slaughter of countless innocents and the torment of grieving parents. This is not a good plan. I mean, this is God we're talking about. This is a broken plan. This is a horrible plan. And that's exactly the point. As St. Athanasius said so long ago, God became man that man might become God. But in order to do that, God had to enter into the mess. He had to enter into our brokenness and our suffering and our failure and our pain and our desperate cries for someone to save us. And that's exactly what he did. And what a marvelous miracle it is. God was at work through all the sins and all the failures of the genealogy of Jesus. God was at work through the pain and the embarrassment and the unspoken accusations of Nazareth. God was at work in Mary's fear and in Joseph's doubt. God was at work in the slammed doors of Bethlehem and the cold cave of his crib. God was even at work through Herod's rage and through the broken hearts of parents clinging to their slaughtered sons. God was at work through the fearful flight to a strange land, strange people. God was at work in all the mess and sin of human failure. This is the incredible, beautiful message of Christmas. And it's the reason for our hope. Because if we look around at the world today, let's be honest, it's a mess. It's a mess. We have threats of nuclear war. We have terrorists running around blowing up anything and everything without rhyme or reason. We have church shootings and school shootings and mall shootings. It's a frightening, devastating mess out there. And here too, in our own hearts, it can be a devastating mess. Like Joseph and Mary, we have our fears and we have our doubts. We have pain and we have suffering. We have broken families and broken communities. We have sin and grief and guilt and fear and stuff that we force so deep down and don't talk about with anyone. We cry out with our silent screams of desperation, "Someone save me." And that is exactly what God is doing. This is the message of Christmas. God does not change. God is working now in all of our mess and in all of our sin and failure and fear to bring about a miracle that we haven't yet dared to dream. Because no matter how broken we may feel, we are precious and priceless in the eyes of God. And that light is still shining in our darkness. And the darkness can never overcome it. Merry Christmas.